Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. During parent-teacher night, my son introduced his stepdad as my real dad and me as my mom's ex who just pays for stuff. I stood there stunned for a second, trying to process what he'd just said. When I pulled him aside later in the hallway and asked, "Elliot, why did you say that?" He just shrugged and said, "Well, he's the one who actually lives with us. You're just the money guy." That one hit harder than I'd expected. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Buddy, I'm your dad." He looked at me like he was stating a simple fact. "I know, but Brady's around more. He takes me to practice and stuff." Before I could respond, Jasmine, my ex-wife, swooped in and said, "Don't make this about you. He can call whoever he wants, Dad." Just like that. No sympathy. No understanding of how crushing it felt to hear those words from my own son. I left quietly that night. I didn't yell, didn't argue. Just walked to my car and drove off. That week, a few things happened. His braces payment? It bounced. Summer camp? Canceled. I didn't say a word. But a few days later, Jasmine showed up at my place in tears, demanding to know why things were falling apart. That moment, I said nothing. Just let the silence answer her. And all of this, it happened nearly 10 months ago now. And honestly, I'm still processing it. Still trying to wrap my head around how fast things changed. My buddy Daniel's the one who convinced me to share this here. He said, "You've got to tell people, man. They'll get it. The justice of it all." And maybe he's right. A bit about me. I'm Victor, 34. I work as a project manager for a mid-sized construction company here in Phoenix. I make around $87,000 a year. I'm not rolling in money, but I do all right. Live in a decent apartment complex. Don't stress about bills. Life's manageable. I've been divorced from Jasmine for about 3 years. We have a 12-year-old son, Elliot. He's my entire world. The divorce wasn't pretty, but I try to keep it civil for Elliot's sake. Jasmine wanted out because, in her words, she was tired of being married to a boring construction guy. What that really meant. She was cheating. Multiple guys. All from her gym. She got caught when she left her phone unlocked too many times. I could have gone nuclear with the divorce, but I didn't. Again, for Elliot. The custody arrangement seemed fair back then. I pay $1,650 in monthly child support, plus all medical, dental, and extracurriculars. Elliot stays with me every other weekend, on Wednesday nights, and during alternating holidays. You know, the standard divorced dad setup. And it was working, until about a year ago. That's when Jasmine married this guy named Brady. He's a regional sales manager for some medical equipment company. Drives a shiny leased Audi. Always dressed sharp. He's got that slick vibe, like he could sell you anything if you stood still long enough. Think used car salesman energy, but with a college degree and tailored clothes. Daniel, my best friend, works with me at the same construction company. He's 41, been through his own nightmare divorce 5 years ago, and has kind of become my unofficial coach on everything custody related. He's blunt, always honest, and he sees through people like glass. When Jasmine first introduced Brady, I showed Daniel the guy's social media. The photos were all polished, expensive dinners, flashy car, designer clothes, perfectly curated captions. Daniel just looked at me and said, "Dude, this guy's whole life is performative. Look at these photos. Expensive restaurants, luxury car, designer clothes. Either he's loaded, or he's living way beyond his means to impress people." At the time, I thought Daniel was being overly suspicious at first. Jasmine seemed happy. Elliot didn't complain about Brady, and honestly, I was relieved she'd found someone else to occupy her attention. For the first time since the divorce, the constant texts and nitpicking over minor parenting decisions had slowed down. It felt like breathing room. But Daniel wasn't convinced. He kept pointing out these little red flags that I had either ignored or missed entirely. "Look at this guy's LinkedIn," he said one afternoon, holding out his phone across our break room table. "He's been at 3 different companies in 2 years. All sales jobs. That screams commission chaser. No stability. He probably can't hold down a steady income." I gave a half shrug. Maybe he's just ambitious. People change jobs. Daniel scoffed. "Come on, man. Look at his social media. These posts. They're too polished. Too staged. Restaurant shots always from the same angle, like he's hiding the fact he's dining solo or only ordering appetizers. And the car? Every photo is after it's been washed. Never a shot with road grime or in a parking lot like a normal person." I rolled my eyes a little. "You think he's just pretending?" Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "He's performing wealth, not living it. Big difference. Mark my words, the second this guy faces real financial pressure or any kind of actual parental responsibility, he'll disappear faster than free food at a construction site." At the time, I laughed it off. I told him he was being dramatic, overanalyzing. But the truth is, Daniel's words stuck with me, tucked away in the back of my head. About 6 months after Jasmine and Brady tied the knot, things started shifting. Nothing huge at first, just subtle changes. Elliot started bringing Brady up more during our phone calls. Brady helped me with my science project. Brady drove me to soccer practice. Brady thinks I should try football instead of soccer. Brady this. Brady that. I told myself it was just part of Elliot adjusting to having a stepdad. He was 12, still young enough to be impressionable, old enough to want male approval. It stung, sure, but I figured it'd pass. But then Elliot started acting differently during our weekends together. He wasn't as enthusiastic. Still came over, still smiled, but there was a kind of distractedness, like his thoughts were somewhere else. When I asked about school or friends, I got short, vague answers. When I suggested things to do, like go-karts or video games, he'd sometimes say, "Well, Brady usually takes me to," then catch himself mid-sentence. That's when the first real red flag hit. It was a school event in September, Elliot's middle school science fair. He'd been working hard on this volcano project for weeks. At our Wednesday dinners, he'd talk my ear off about his hypothesis, his models, the baking soda ratios, everything. The fair was on a Thursday night, technically not my custody day. But Elliot called me and said, "Dad, can you come? I really want you to see it." So I moved a few things around at work, made sure I could get out early, and showed up at the school gymnasium. I was actually excited to see his presentation. I walked in, scanning rows of cardboard displays and folding tables under the buzzing lights, looking for Elliot's volcano. That's when I spotted him, across the room, next to his display. He was standing with Jasmine and Brady. He was mid-sentence, talking to one of the judges, animated and confident. Jasmine stood behind them, phone in hand, like she was filming or snapping pictures. And Brady had one hand resting on Elliot's shoulder, that classic protective dad pose. Like they were some happy little family. I felt this weird mix of pride and something sharper, jealousy maybe? Sadness? I don't know. But then Elliot looked up, and the second he saw me walking over, his face lit up. "Dad, you made it," Elliot called out as I walked over, his face bright with excitement. That look on his face made the entire week's stress worth it. Jasmine, on the other hand, looked annoyed, like I had just crashed some private moment she was trying to curate. "Oh, hi," she said, putting on that fake smile she saves for when other people are watching. "I didn't think you were coming." I kept my tone calm. "Elliot asked me to come," I said, then smiled at my son. "Wouldn't miss it." Before I could say more, Brady stepped forward with that overly polished grin and extended his hand like we were old friends. "Great to see you again, man," he said, gripping my hand with that practiced salesman shake. "Elliot's been working really hard on this project. I've been helping him with some of the technical aspects." Technical aspects? I glanced at the volcano. It was a baking soda and vinegar science fair classic, not a NASA simulation, but I just gave a tight smile and turned my attention back to Elliot. The kid was glowing with pride, walking me through the setup, explaining the reaction, showing off the colored lava effect. I listened, nodding, genuinely impressed. He'd clearly worked hard. But Brady wouldn't stop interjecting. "Tell him how we worked on the proportions of the vinegar," he said. "Don't forget to mention how we practiced the presentation together," he added, like he was the one submitting the project for a grade. Each time Elliot tried to explain something, Brady would chime in with a correction or clarification, subtly positioning himself as the one who'd guided the whole thing. Jasmine stood off to the side, snapping photos, except none with me in them. Every angle framed Brady and Elliot like a perfect little father-son duo. In most of them, I was either awkwardly in the background or cropped out entirely. Then another parent walked by and complimented Elliot's project. "Wow, this is amazing work." Before Elliot could respond, Brady jumped in. "Thanks. We've been working on this for weeks," he said. I helped him understand the chemical reactions and how to really nail the presentation techniques. Like I didn't exist. Like I hadn't spent time online helping Elliot with his research or printing out articles to read together over dinner. I could see Elliot start to mention something about the research we'd done, but Brady immediately redirected. "Yeah, but remember how I showed you the better way to organize your data?" he said, steering the conversation right back to himself. Elliot hesitated for a second, then just nodded. But I caught the flicker of confusion in his eyes. After about 10 minutes of trying to keep my cool, I leaned down and said to Elliot, "I'm proud of you, bud. I'll see you this weekend, okay?" He gave me a hug, and I left without looking back at Jasmine or Brady. On my way out, I passed Brady talking to another parent. "Yeah, my stepson's volcano," he was saying. "We spent so much time on it together. Lots of late nights. You know how it is." He was still talking like I wasn't even there. Still taking credit while I was right there in the building. I looked back and saw Jasmine, still snapping pictures, each one strategically framed to make Brady look like the devoted father. In every single shot, Brady was centered between her and Elliot. Me? I was a shadow in the background. As I drove home, I couldn't shake what Daniel had said months ago. Watch out for guys who try too hard to play dad. Usually means they're either trying to impress your ex or they're setting up to push you out. October rolled in, and with it came parent-teacher conferences. Jasmine and I had a long-standing arrangement. We'd alternate who attended. This fall was my turn. No big deal. I'd been doing these for years. Walk in, sit down, hear about Elliot's grades and behavior, maybe a few suggestions for homework routines, shake hands, and head out. Same cycle every time. Roosevelt Middle School was buzzing that Thursday evening. Parents clustered in the halls, waiting their turn. I checked in at the front office, picked up my list of teachers to visit, and started making my way through. Elliot's English teacher, his science teacher. Then I got to his math teacher. All the meetings had gone smoothly. Nothing surprising. Elliot was doing well academically, though his math teacher mentioned he could focus a bit more during class. Otherwise, the reports were positive. I was proud and relieved. I'd always worried about how the divorce might affect his school life, but so far, he seemed steady. The final meeting was with his social studies teacher. I made my way down the hall, knocked on the door, and stepped inside expecting the same routine I'd just been through 3 times already. Oh, wonderful, the teacher said as she stood up from behind her desk, beaming. You must be Brady's husband. I've heard so much about you from Jasmine. I stopped mid-step. I'm sorry, what? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Her smile faltered instantly, eyes scanning my face for an explanation. Aren't you married to Brady? Jasmine's husband. I shook my head slowly. No, I'm Elliot's father. Jasmine is my ex-wife. The color drained from her face. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I just assumed Brady's been handling all of Elliot's school communications this year. And Jasmine mentioned her husband. So I thought. Brady's been handling what communications exactly? I asked, my voice quiet but tight. She turned to her computer. Well, he's listed as the primary contact for parent-teacher emails, school events, permission slips. She started clicking through screens. He signed Elliot up for the Geography B and the Student Council elections. He even volunteered to chaperone the field trip to the state capitol next month. I felt my stomach twist. Can you show me what contact information you have on file? She hesitated only a moment before pulling up Elliot's student profile and turning the screen toward me. There it was. Plain as day. Primary guardian, Bradley T. Phone, not mine. Email, definitely not mine. Mother, Jasmine. Biological father, Victor's secondary contact. Secondary. Like a backup. An afterthought. When was this information updated? I asked. She clicked a few tabs. Looks like August. Jasmine submitted new emergency contact forms at the start of the school year. August. 2 months ago. Jasmine had gone behind my back and systematically erased me from the primary position in my son's school life, and didn't say a word. Is there something else I should know? The teacher asked gently. She was clearly uncomfortable now, realizing she'd stumbled into something much deeper than a parent-teacher conference. I took a breath. Has Elliot ever mentioned anything about his family situation? About his father? She hesitated. Well, he did tell me once that Brady was teaching him to be more responsible, and that his biological father was kind of absent, but still paid for things. Her voice lowered. He said Brady was more like a real dad because he actually showed up for important stuff. Each word hit harder than the last. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I thanked her, as calmly as I could, and asked for copies of the contact forms Jasmine had submitted. She printed them without a word. Then I walked out of that school like I was made of stone. Like if I cracked even a little, I'd break into 1,000 pieces. The drive home was torture. I kept replaying Elliot's words in my head. Kind of absent, still paid for things, more like a real dad. Those words kept looping in my head all night. How had I become just a wallet to my own son? That evening, I called Daniel. I could barely get the words out before he cut in. Dude, he said, voice sharp with alarm. If she changed the school contacts without telling you, she definitely changed everything else too. This woman is trying to systematically erase you from Elliot's life. The gravity of it hit me all over again. Daniel came over the next morning with a tray of coffee and his old beat-up laptop. He walked through the door like he was on a mission. We're going full investigative mode today, he said, setting the coffees down and flipping open his laptop. I've been through this exact situation with my ex, so I know what to look for. We spent the entire Saturday calling offices, logging into accounts, cross-referencing paperwork, any place that had Elliot's information on file. What we uncovered, it was worse than I'd imagined. First up was Elliot's pediatrician. I called the office, thinking I'd just verify that my info was still listed. The receptionist, cheerful as ever, pulled up the record. Oh yes, Mr. Brady has been listed as the emergency contact and is authorized for medical decisions, she said brightly. He's been to several of Elliot's appointments this year. Such a caring stepdad. I stared at the phone, gripping it tighter. When was the last appointment? About 3 weeks ago. He had lots of questions about Elliot's growth charts. He also requested copies of the vaccination records. He said they were needed for school. I didn't even know Elliot had been to the doctor 3 weeks ago. Next, we checked the dentist. When I called to schedule Elliot's routine cleaning, I was put on hold. Then the receptionist came back and said, "I'm sorry, but we'll need approval from the primary guardian." What? I said. Well, Brady's listed as the primary contact now, she said matter-of-factly. He handles all the scheduling and treatment decisions. I felt my jaw clench. Oh, and he was just in here asking about teeth whitening options for Elliot. Teeth whitening. I repeated. He's 12. Yes, we thought it was a little early too. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You writing all this down? Every word, I said. Then came the orthodontist. I'd been paying $1,900 every 3 months for those braces. Without fail. Yet when I called their office, the manager said, Brady's actually listed as the responsible party on file now. But the bills still come to me. I know, she replied, a little confused. You're still paying, but Brady's been attending most of the appointments. He's asked a lot of detailed questions about Elliot's treatment plan. I asked if he'd made any changes. He actually suggested accelerating the treatment timeline. It would require more frequent visits and adjustments, which, just so you know, would significantly increase your costs. Of course he did. Then we checked in with the soccer league. I'd coached Elliot's teams for years. Stayed involved after the divorce. I figured I still had a foot in the door there. But the league coordinator told a different story. Brady's listed as the main parent contact now, she said. He volunteered to help with team fundraising and even suggested moving Elliot to a more competitive travel team. It would be a bigger financial commitment. But he said you were both on board. I wasn't. Lastly, we contacted the after-school program. The director pulled up the files and said, Brady's authorized for pickups and is listed as the primary contact for any behavioral concerns. My stomach sank. He's been very involved, she added. He attends all the parent meetings and even suggested some curriculum changes to help better prepare the kids for real-world challenges. Even Elliot's library card had been updated with Brady's information as the primary guardian. I found that out when I called the local branch to ask about a book Elliot mentioned. The librarian was friendly, almost too friendly, and said, "Oh yes, Mr. Brady has been checking out several parenting titles lately, developmental psychology, gifted education, even some books on adolescent behavior. He's been asking about enrichment programs, too." Really involved dad. I stood there in my kitchen, phone to my ear, trying to hold back the frustration that was boiling over. Brady was posing as the deeply concerned parent while I paid for everything in the background. And that was the real kicker. In every single place we checked, doctors, dentists, schools, the library, I was still listed as the financially responsible party. Jasmine and Brady got to play house, to make all the decisions, while I footed the bill like a silent sponsor. Daniel was pacing my apartment like a storm cloud in motion. This isn't just disorganization or poor communication, he snapped. This is a systematic campaign to establish Brady as Elliot's de facto father. She's not doing this accidentally. She's laying the groundwork. For what? I asked, even though I already feared the answer. Daniel stopped mid-pace and looked at me dead on. Full custody. She's building documentation, paper trails, records, making it look like Brady's the primary parent. When she files, all this becomes proof that you are the secondary parent. That hit me like a sledgehammer. It wasn't just that Brady was getting too involved. Jasmine wasn't just being careless. She was engineering a version of reality where Brady looked like the real dad, and I looked like an occasional visitor with a checkbook. I could feel it in my chest, panic, betrayal, helplessness, all nodding together. We spent the rest of that Saturday documenting everything. Every call, every record, every shift in contact information. Daniel helped me build a spreadsheet, column by column, listing each organization or service, what had been changed, when it had been updated, and what my original role had been before Jasmine tampered with it. As the list grew, the pattern emerged like a slap in the face. It was calculated, it was deliberate, and it was terrifying. That night, I called Elliot for our usual Friday check-in. But this time, I wasn't just calling to chat. I was listening differently. Brady's teaching me to drive in the parking lot behind his office, Elliot said, his voice buzzing with excitement. He says when I turn 16, he'll help me pick out a good used car. I forced a smile into my voice. That's cool, buddy. Did your mom say that was okay? Yeah, they both think I'll be a good driver, he said. Brady says I've got good instincts. Then he added, Brady thinks I should quit soccer and focus on football instead. Says it builds more character. I blinked. Really? I didn't know you were thinking of switching. Yeah, my cleats were getting small, so Brady took me to get new ones last week. They're awesome. That stung. Elliot hadn't even mentioned to me that he needed new cleats. I tried to keep my tone light. You know, you could have told me. I would have helped you pick them out. Brady said you work too much. Elliot continued. And that's why you can't come to all my games. My grip tightened on the phone. For the record, I said carefully, I've been to every game that falls on my weekends. The only ones I've missed are the ones your mom schedules during her time. Oh, right. Elliot mumbled. Then he said, wait, it's your weekend coming up? That stopped me cold. It is, I said. We're still on for Saturday, yeah? Yeah, I just forgot. I thought maybe we were doing something else. Forgot. He forgot. That conversation sealed it. The shift wasn't just happening on paper. Jasmine and Brady weren't just manipulating records. They were actively chipping away at my relationship with my son. Week by week, word by word. Monday morning, I didn't hesitate. I called my lawyer and scheduled an emergency meeting. When I walked into her office, I handed over a flash drive and a stack of printed spreadsheets, the documentation Daniel and I had gathered over the weekend. My lawyer looked through the entire stack of documents, every spreadsheet, printout, and email thread, with growing concern etched across his face. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but firm. This constitutes systematic parental alienation, he said, tapping a page with his pen. Jasmine has made unilateral decisions about Elliot's care and has actively undermined your parental involvement without your consent. This is a direct violation of your custody agreement. I leaned back in my chair, fists clenched. Just hearing it confirmed from someone who understood the legal side made the weight of it settle heavier on my chest. He continued, we'll file a motion for contempt of court and request an emergency hearing. But Victor, you need to understand, legal proceedings take time. Meanwhile, your relationship with your son is deteriorating every day this continues. I looked at him, frustrated. So what? I just wait while she rewrites our lives. He held up a finger. You might have some immediate leverage, something that could resolve this situation much faster than waiting for a court date. That caught my attention. Go on, I said. He tapped the financial section of the spreadsheet Daniel and I had compiled. You've been covering all of Elliot's expenses, orthodontist, camp, sports, school, through your old account, correct? Yeah, I nodded. I updated my banking info about 6 months ago, but I gave Jasmine the new routing numbers so the automatic payments for Elliot wouldn't get disrupted. He raised an eyebrow, and she never updated them. Not that I know of. She just kept using the old info. That account's technically closed now, but it still shows as active on some platforms. I've been eating the overdraft fees. He leaned forward slightly, a gleam in his eye. Then here's what you do. Let those payments bounce. I blinked. What? If Brady wants to act like Elliot's primary father figure, he said, maybe it's time he pays like one too. Let the charges come through and fail. See how quickly the fantasy collapses when there's a price tag attached. I just sat there, letting the idea settle. It was simple, clean, effective. And the timing, my lawyer added, couldn't be more perfect. He was right. Elliot had a storm of expenses about to hit. His next orthodontist adjustment was scheduled for Wednesday, $1,850. The final summer camp payment was due Friday, $2,650. Fall soccer league registration, Monday, $425, and his school field trip deposit, $275, was set to process Tuesday. That was $5,200 about to hammer an account that no longer had my support. When I told Daniel later that night, he practically lit up. Dude, he said, this is perfect. You've been the invisible wallet long enough. Watch how fast Brady's Dad of the Year act disappears when it starts actually costing him money. But I didn't want to stop there. If this guy was going to play the part of my son's father, I needed to know exactly who I was dealing with. So I went digging. Social media gave me everything I needed. A little time on Instagram and Facebook, a few clicks on LinkedIn, and the truth started pouring out. His shiny Audi? Leased, not owned. Photos of monthly progress and captions about grinding to earn success made it pretty clear. The guy was barely making the payments. His Instagram was packed with photos from upscale bars, trendy restaurants, designer shoes, the newest gadgets. All surface, all image. The kind of guy who looked rich from a distance, but was probably drowning in credit card debt just to keep the illusion going. And then I hit his LinkedIn. 3 jobs in 2 years. All sales. Not promotions, lateral moves. Which, in my experience, usually means one of two things. Either the guy has serious performance issues, or he's a commission chaser, constantly bouncing from company to company looking for the next big score, but never quite making it stick. From the pattern I saw, it looked like the latter, chasing pay without much success. The most telling discovery came from a Facebook post Brady made a few months back. He was humble bragging about diversifying his portfolio and investing in cryptocurrency and alternative markets. Translation: the guy was probably gambling with money he couldn't afford to lose. It all clicked. Brady was living a life funded by credit cards, commission checks, and smoke and mirrors. And Jasmine? She had no idea. Wednesday morning, I was sitting in my office, sipping coffee and finishing up a project schedule when my phone rang. Jasmine's name popped up on the caller ID. I answered, "Hello." "Why did Elliot's orthodontist appointment get canceled?" she snapped, not even giving me a chance to breathe. I leaned back in my chair. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said calmly. Daniel, sitting across from me with a sandwich in one hand and a wicked grin on his face, was already shaking his head, trying not to laugh. "They said your payment was declined," Jasmine shot back, her voice climbing, "and they can't continue his treatment until the account is current." "That's strange," I replied. "What payment are they referring to?" She hit that shrill, high-pitched tone that used to make me reflexively apologize for whatever she was upset about. "Don't play games with me." "The $1,850 for his bite correction procedure." "Oh," I said. "That payment?" "Yeah, that was set up through my old account, you know, the one I closed months ago." Silence. "I gave you the new routing numbers back in March," I continued. "You were supposed to update Elliot's payment information with the new account details." "You never told me to update them everywhere," she snapped. "I assumed you would," I said, still calm. "Since Brady's been handling all of Elliot's medical and school communications, I figured he was coordinating the finances too. Brady doesn't have access to your payments." "Well," I said, shrugging even though she couldn't see it, "maybe he should. He's apparently Elliot's primary father figure now. Seems reasonable that he'd handle primary father figure financial responsibilities as well." "You're being petty and vindictive. You're hurting Elliot. This isn't about Brady, it's about your son." I cut her off. "I'm not hurting anyone. I just naturally assumed that since Brady's taking over all the communications and decisions, he'd also want to take on the financial obligations that go with them." Then I added, "By the way, the summer camp payment process is on Friday. Hope Brady's prepared to handle that too." I ended the call before she could respond and looked over at Daniel, who was now laughing into his lunch. "Phase 1 complete," he said with a smirk. Friday came, and with it, the expected follow-up call. This time, her tone was completely different. She was crying. "Please, the summer camp called and said they're giving Elliot's spot to someone on the waiting list. He's been looking forward to this camp for months." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just said, "That's really unfortunate. Did Brady offer to cover the payment?" She sniffled. "He says he doesn't have that kind of money available right now." "Huh, interesting," I said, feigning surprise. "What exactly does a medical equipment sales manager earn?" I would have thought someone in his position would have $2,650 readily available for his stepson's summer activities. "That's not fair," she snapped. "What's not fair?" I said coldly into the phone. "Is Brady playing daddy when it's convenient, but disappearing the moment it costs him something?" I could hear her breathing on the other end, shaky, sharp. I didn't stop. "Maybe he should consider getting a more stable job if he wants to step into the role of provider. That's part of being a dad too, isn't it?" The rest of the conversation with Jasmine was a mess of anger, denial, and thinly veiled desperation. For 3 years, I'd been the silent financial backbone while she and Brady played pretend family. Now reality was knocking on their carefully curated illusion, and I was loving every second of it. "Look," I said finally, "I'm not trying to punish anyone. I'm perfectly willing to resume covering Elliot's expenses once my role as his father is restored. Fully. That means contact forms, school records, doctors, sports, everything." She tried to pivot. "You're using money to manipulate the situation." "No," I said firmly. "I'm refusing to let you erase me while I keep paying for the privilege. Until I'm respected as his father, Brady can figure out how to be more than just the weekend fun parent." The next few weeks, it was like watching dominoes fall, one after the other. Elliot's orthodontist called Jasmine 3 times, trying to collect payment. When nothing came through, they suspended his treatment altogether. His correction plan got pushed back months, and the delay would now likely extend the total treatment time. Jasmine had to sit Elliot down and explain why his monthly appointments were suddenly canceled. I could only imagine how that conversation went, and I wasn't about to play the villain to cover for her lies. Then came the summer camp fallout. That one hurt. Elliot had been talking about that specialized robotics camp since the winter. It was an elite program, only 30 kids accepted, and he'd been on the wait list for 2 years. 2 years of anticipation, excitement, and hope flushed down the drain because Jasmine couldn't come up with $2,650 and Brady wasn't stepping up. The camp released his spot to another child on the wait list, and Elliot was left devastated, confused, and heartbroken. asking questions his mom didn't have good answers for. Next, soccer. The fall league dropped him from the team roster. Non-payment. Just like that, he was out of the tournament he'd been working toward all season. He'd been one of the best players. His coach had even called me a few months earlier to say he thought Elliot might get scouted for the local development program. Gone. His friends and teammates kept texting him, asking why he wasn't showing up to practices anymore. That part especially stung. But the fallout didn't stop with Elliot. Jasmine's checking account, already shaky, got slammed with overdraft fees when the orthodontist tried charging the old account. That single hit created a chain reaction. Her gym membership, her Netflix subscription, and even her car insurance payments all bounced within days. Apparently, she hadn't realized how tightly everything was strung together financially. She started calling me daily, leaving voicemails in every emotional flavor. One day it was rage. "You're a heartless bastard." The next day, it was bargaining. "We can fix this if you'll just start paying again. We'll change the contact info." Then desperation. "You're destroying your son's future over a petty disagreement." And the most ridiculous one? Brady says this is emotional abuse. Right. Brady. Through all of this, I started piecing together a much clearer picture of what was really going on inside their happy little household. Brady's medical equipment sales job? Entirely commission-based. He wasn't pulling in a reliable salary. His income was all over the place, and much more unstable than Jasmine had realized. That shiny Audi and the nights out at trendy bars might have looked good on Instagram, but his paychecks didn't leave much wiggle room. Between the car payments, their rent, and all the lifestyle fluff Brady liked to showcase, there wasn't a whole lot of financial bandwidth left, certainly not enough to cover surprise $2,000 plus costs for someone else's child. Even better, Jasmine started letting things slip during our phone calls, little cracks in their perfect image. "He says he never agreed to financially support your son," she snapped at me during one especially heated conversation. I leaned back in my chair, eyebrows raised. "Oh really? He says you're supposed to handle all the money stuff, while he handles the day-to-day parenting." I almost laughed. It was perfect. Brady wanted the authority and recognition of being a father figure, but none of the actual responsibility. Classic. He wanted to play dad in photo ops and parent-teacher conferences, but when real bills showed up, suddenly, I was the wallet again. "He can't have it both ways," I said, keeping my voice calm. "If he wants the role, he gets all of it." Daniel and I started meeting every Friday morning at our usual coffee spot. It became our little ritual: caffeine, sarcasm, and watching Jasmine's carefully crafted illusion collapse like a cheap folding chair. "It's like a social experiment," Daniel said one morning, stirring cream into his coffee. Fake alpha male gets hit with real responsibility, and boom, true character comes crawling out. And right on cue, the evidence started piling up. Brady's social media presence, the same feed that used to overflow with steak dinners, craft cocktails, and overpriced gadgets, went dark for 2 weeks. Radio silence. Then, slowly, it came back, different. Now it was workout selfies in a cluttered living room. Budget protein shakes instead of $18 brunches. Canned tuna salads. Meal prep. Staying in instead of nights out. He'd gone from flashy lifestyle content to damage control mode. But the best part? Jasmine let it slip one night, maybe without even realizing it. "He's taken a second job," she said, her voice bitter. "Weekend sales shifts at some mattress store." I blinked. "He's working 2 jobs now." "Yeah," she sighed. "Says he's helping with household expenses." Translation: guy was scrambling. There were no thousands of dollars lying around for orthodontics or robotics camps. Brady was barely holding on, and Jasmine was starting to feel it. Meanwhile, the impact on Elliot was becoming more and more apparent. During our phone calls, he sounded confused. Not just about the summer plans being canceled, but about the entire dynamic in their house. "Why did my camp get canceled?" he asked me one night. "Did something happen with the money?" "I'm not sure, bud," I said carefully. "I think there were some changes in who was managing it. But I know you were really excited for it." "Yeah," he said, poking at his dinner. "It's weird. Mom and Brady keep arguing. And Brady's not around as much." Another night, over takeout during one of our custody weekends, Elliot asked a question that nearly made me drop my fork. "Why doesn't Brady just pay for my camp if he wants to make decisions about it?" I looked up, surprised. "That's a really good question, buddy. What do you think the answer might be?" He thought for a moment, then said quietly, "I think maybe he doesn't actually want to take care of me. He just wants Mom to think he does." I nodded slowly. "That's a very thoughtful answer. Kids are sharper than we give them credit for." Elliot was beginning to see through Brady's polished act, without me ever having to say a single bad thing about the guy. That felt like a win I hadn't expected. 2 months after I'd cut off the financial pipeline, the whole facade Jasmine and Brady had constructed was crumbling in spectacular fashion. Jasmine's calls got more and more frantic. One day she was screaming, the next she was begging. The constant? Brady was vanishing. He'd taken on longer hours, was staying late at the second job, and generally making himself scarce whenever anything resembling family drama popped up. The involved, picture-perfect stepdad? Now just the stressed-out husband who was suddenly too busy to deal with family drama. I started getting a much clearer picture of what was happening behind their closed doors, thanks to Jasmine's increasingly erratic phone calls. The anger was still there, but now it came laced with confusion, panic, and a kind of helplessness I hadn't heard in her voice before. He says he thought being a stepdad meant fun stuff, like games and movies, she blurted out during one particularly revealing conversation. Not paying for expensive medical treatments. I didn't say anything. Just let her keep going. He never expected to have to contribute financially to Elliot's needs. That told me everything I needed to know. Brady never intended to step up, he just liked the image. But the really juicy details came during the late-night calls. You know the ones. Slurred words, muffled sobs, and oversharing she'd pretend never happened the next day. One night around 11 p.m., my phone lit up. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. She was clearly drunk. Brady screamed at me today, she sobbed. Because Elliot asked him for $20. I blinked. $20. Yeah, for a school fundraiser. He said he's not an ATM for someone else's kid. That you should be covering everything because you're the biological father. I sat there, silent, absorbing it. Then came the kicker. He's been pushing me to file for full custody, she admitted. Says we should start fresh. Be a real family without you always around, hanging over everything. Jasmine, he wants to move. To another state. Said if I loved him, I'd make sure you couldn't see Elliot anymore. There it was. Daniel's prediction unfolding exactly as he called it. Brady was all in for the spotlight, for the praise, for the title of dad, as long as it came without responsibility or cost. The moment the role became real, the illusion shattered. He'd been playing house, not building one. And then came December. It was a Tuesday night, and Jasmine called. I answered, expecting another rant or demand. But her voice was different. No anger. No fire. Just tired. Brady moved out, she said. I didn't say anything at first. Just let the silence sit. When? I asked finally. Yesterday. He said he couldn't handle the stress. Said dealing with issues from my previous marriage was too much. That I was trying to force him into a father role he never wanted. I exhaled slowly. What triggered it? She hesitated. Then her voice cracked. Elliot's winter coat got ripped over the weekend. I asked Brady to pick up a new one since he was going to the mall anyway. And he exploded. Said he's not Elliot's father. Said it's not his job to buy clothes for someone else's kid. He said he was tired of everyone expecting him to pay for your responsibilities. Of course he did. She kept going. He said I was using him, that he felt trapped. Then he took his stuff and left. Said he needed space to figure things out. I could practically hear the shame bleeding through the phone. But I saw his Instagram story, she added quietly. He posted photos with some woman. I think he's already moved on. Of course, he had. Guys like Brady don't reflect on their behavior or work through relationship challenges. I said, my voice calm but firm. They just find the next woman to impress with their fake lifestyle. They move on when things get real. Jasmine was quiet, probably realizing for the first time how deeply she'd misjudged the situation. Jasmine, I said carefully, I need you to understand something. This situation with Brady was entirely predictable. You let him undermine my relationship with Elliot because you thought you were upgrading to a more involved father figure. There was silence on the line. Then she whispered, I know. I messed up. I let that sit for a moment. I let him convince me that it would be better for Elliot to have a full-time father figure instead of a part-time one. She continued, her voice cracking. I thought he really cared about Elliot. No, I said plainly. Brady cared about Brady. He cared about looking like a great guy. To you. Elliot was just a prop in his performance. She didn't argue. The conversation went on for over an hour, and for the first time since our divorce, Jasmine was actually being honest with me. Open. Vulnerable. She admitted Brady had been the one pushing for all the changes to Elliot's school and medical records. He said it would be more efficient if he handled communications, she said, since his sales job gave him more flexibility than yours. Efficient for who? I asked. I didn't think about it like that, she replied. He just started taking over things gradually. First it was permission slips, then school events. Then he was listed as the main contact. I thought it made sense. He manipulated you. She didn't deny it. He told me it was confusing for Elliot to have two dads involved in everything, she admitted. He said it would be better for Elliot's stability if he had one consistent father figure who was actually there every day. I could feel my jaw tighten, and that consistent figure was supposed to be him. She gave the smallest, saddest yes. It was infuriating how clear the manipulation was in hindsight. Brady had made her feel like including me in parenting decisions was a threat to their relationship. He isolated her judgment, step by step. He made me feel guilty for looping you in, she said quietly. Said healthy families don't need input from ex-husbands, that I was preventing our new family from bonding properly. Classic manipulative behavior, I said flatly. He didn't want to co-parent. He wanted to replace. Jasmine took a shaky breath. What I don't understand, I said, is how you thought this would work long term. Did you really think I was just going to fade away and let Brady replace me as Elliot's father? There was a long pause. Then she spoke with a kind of broken honesty. I don't know. Brady made it sound like most divorced fathers eventually become less involved anyway. He said you'd probably be relieved to have less responsibility. That Elliot would be better off with a dad who was actually present day to day. That was the part that burned the most. He projected his own shallow character onto me. I said, my voice low. And you believed it. Jasmine didn't argue this time either. She just sat in that silence with me. Jasmine, I said, letting each word land, I need you to understand something. I will never, under any circumstances, allow anyone to push me out of Elliot's life. I don't care who you marry or what they want. I told Jasmine, steady and unwavering. Elliot is my son, and I will always be his father. If you ever try something like this again, I'll take you to court and fight for primary custody. She started crying then. Her voice trembled. I know. I'm sorry. I really screwed this up. Yes, you did, I said coldly. And now Elliot has been hurt by your poor judgment. He lost his summer camp. His orthodontic treatment was delayed, and he had to watch another fake father figure abandon him when things got difficult. That one landed hard. She sobbed softly on the other end of the line. He's been asking why Brady doesn't want to see him anymore, she whispered. I don't know what to tell him. I didn't hesitate. Tell him the truth. Tell him that Brady wasn't ready for the real responsibilities of being a father figure, and that sometimes adults make promises they can't keep. We spent the rest of that call hashing out what needed to happen next. I wasn't about to let this slide. Jasmine agreed, reluctantly at first, but then with conviction, to correct all of Elliot's contact information. Every place she'd listed Brady as the primary contact, gone. She would personally call his teachers, his coaches, his medical providers. She'd make it clear that I was his father, an equal decision maker. She also agreed to pay me back the $2,800 in overdraft fees and banking charges that her little scheme had cost me. I don't have that kind of money right now, she admitted. Then get a job, I said flatly. A real one. Not another one of your pyramid schemes or essential oil hustles. You're going to learn what it means to actually contribute to your son's life instead of just finding men to pay for it. There was desperation in her voice now, the kind that used to drive me crazy with guilt, but not anymore. Now, it just felt like justice. Please, she pleaded. I'll do whatever you want. Elliot keeps asking why his dad doesn't come to his games anymore, and I don't know what to tell him. Tell him his dad never stopped wanting to come to his games, I said sharply. Tell him his mother made some really bad decisions that hurt everyone involved. I will, she promised. I promise. Just, please start helping with his expenses again. He's missing out on everything, and it's breaking my heart. I couldn't help but laugh. Your heart? I asked. Jasmine, you spent months systematically trying to erase me from my son's life. You let your boyfriend manipulate Elliot into thinking I was just some guy who sends money. Now you're concerned about his well-being. She was sobbing full on now. No more defenses. No more excuses. I know I messed up, she cried. I know I hurt Elliot. But please don't punish him for my mistakes. I'm not punishing him, I said. I'm teaching both of you that actions have consequences. You wanted Brady to be Elliot's primary father figure? Well, now you get to see what that actually looks like when the guy isn't just playing pretend. Over the following weeks, to her credit, Jasmine followed through on her commitments. She corrected Elliot's contact information everywhere. She made the calls. She even wrote formal letters to Elliot's school and medical offices, clarifying the entire situation and affirming my role. I covered the orthodontist bill so Elliot's treatment could resume, and I made sure he didn't miss another appointment. We found a winter sports program that turned out to be even better for him, one that matched his real interests, not Brady's wannabe alpha nonsense. The summer camp was a lost cause, at least for that year. But we researched together and found an even better one for the following summer, one he was excited about for all the right reasons. And most importantly, above all the logistics, paperwork, and emotional wreckage, Elliot and I started rebuilding our relationship. It took several months for Elliot to fully understand what had happened. At first, he was just confused, trying to make sense of why Brady, who had once seemed like a constant, had suddenly vanished. But kids are smarter than people give them credit for. Once he had time to process everything, his respect for me actually grew. One night, during one of our quieter weekends together, we were sitting on the back porch after dinner. The air was cool, and he was sipping hot chocolate while I nursed a cup of coffee. Out of nowhere, he said, "I'm sorry I said Brady was more like a real dad." I turned to him. "You don't need to apologize, buddy." He seemed really cool at first, Elliot continued. "He played video games with me and bought me pizza, and I thought that meant he really cared. But then he just disappeared when things got hard." I nodded slowly. Adults sometimes let kids down, and that's not the kid's fault. What matters is that you learn something important from it. Elliot looked at me. "I serious. What did I learn?" "You learn the difference between someone who wants to look like a good person and someone who actually is a good person. Real fathers don't abandon their kids when responsibilities get expensive or complicated." He was quiet for a moment, then gave a small, thoughtful nod. "You never abandoned me, even when Mom was trying to replace you." I reached over and rested a hand on his shoulder. "I never will, Elliot. No matter what happens, you'll always be my son, and I'll always be your father." That conversation hit both of us pretty hard, but it also marked a turning point. From that moment on, something shifted. Elliot began appreciating the consistency and reliability I had always provided, not just accepting it as a given, but valuing it. Jasmine never did pay back the $2,800 she owed me. But honestly, watching her scramble to find steady employment was payment enough. She eventually landed a job as a receptionist at a dental office, which felt oddly poetic, considering how many dental appointments she'd once kept me out of. For the first time since I'd known her, she was learning what it meant to support herself instead of bouncing from one man's wallet to another. Daniel summed it up perfectly one Friday during our usual coffee meetup. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Your ex thought she could trade up from a reliable, committed father to a flashy pretender. Instead, she learned that real men don't abandon responsibilities just because they become inconvenient." Brady? He vanished from their lives entirely. He moved to another part of the city, blocked Jasmine on everything, and never so much as texted Elliot again. A clean cut. Later, Jasmine found out through mutual friends that he'd already moved in with another single mom. Predictable. Most likely starting the whole fake stepdad routine over again until real responsibilities emerged and scared him off. The whole experience, while painful, had a lasting impact, especially on Elliot. It taught him some hard but valuable lessons about character, about consistency, about the difference between someone who shows up for the photo ops and someone who shows up when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, and thankless. He learned that real love and commitment aren't conditional on convenience or personal benefit. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.